Hey everybody, and welcome back. Well, as you can see, we've got the Triumph Otter up on here. There's a lot of lorries coming up the road today. That will go past. So, as I mentioned, when Chris rode this, he really liked it. And as I say, he rode it really well. But there was three things he mentioned. To be honest, it was three things that he sort of said, oh, it would be nice if they were slightly changed, but no, when I sort of said to him, okay, I'll do this, he said, well, you don't really need to, because he's just so good he can cope with adversity, if you like. So the three things he mentioned were a bit more steering lock, the fact that this little double blip thing he likes to do, it was stuttering on the second blip, which is a bit of a thing in 4 strokes anyway, and a bit more ground clearance. Now, as you know, as soon as I finished this and it was off the lift table, which gives you a different perspective, I looked at it and thought, shoot, I've forgotten to take account of the suspension sag. So the engine is where I want it, sort of in terms of weight distribution when you ride it, but what I should have done is, as I was building it, make it a couple of inches higher, so that when all the weight was on and when the ride was on, the engine was where I wanted it. So anyway, can't be helped, we live and learn. So what I'm going to try and do now is those three things. Well, steering lock, I thought I was maybe going to have to put some dents in this or modify the tank, but I think there's still enough to bring it round and get it to where I want it to be. I'll show you that in a minute. The slight stutter, I think I might have found out what was wrong. Now again, I think I mentioned this in a video a while ago, but it suddenly struck me that, when I was setting up the camshafts for the valve timing and I had the instructions, because this is the twin carb engine, I just opened that part of the manual, set it all up. And then when I was looking at this and thinking, well, can I alter the valve timing a little bit to try and adjust that stutter? And then, sort of turn the page over and realised then it said, okay, there's different Woodruff key settings on the camshafts. Set it this way for the twin carb model, this way for the single carb model. And of course, I converted this to single carb. So that may be why it's just not quite right in that respect. Because when you look at the valve openings, they've moved slightly, but they're open for the same number of degrees. So I'm hoping that's sorted out. Now, to get more ground clearance, Chris was really taken with the way this rides. He said everything works perfect. So I don't want to adjust that too much. Now I think what I can do is lift the engine about an inch. I mean, fortunately we're just on alloy plates, so it's not as if I've got to start making them. So I'm pretty sure I can lift it an inch. There's about enough space in here. The thing that's going to decide it, as you'll see when we get to it, actually is the carburetor. I've got plenty of room under here for the engine. I can get my hand in there. The engine will lift up. Once I've lifted the engine a little bit, then that is going to lift the gearbox sprocket. So if you imagine this is the gearbox sprocket and this is the swinging arm pivot cross piece that the chain's going to go over, it's going to lift that up like that. It's going to give me more clearance here. And what that's going to allow me to do, I need 3 hands here, is drop the back wheel down a little and still have a chain run that doesn't catch on that. Because if I left the engine here, so the sprocket's there, and then I dropped the wheel, the chain would sort of be rubbing on this ball. So I can do that easily by just moving the bottom mount of the suspension unit up the swinging arm a little bit, which will actually, because of the geometry of it, give me a little bit more suspension movement. So I can lift the engine maybe an inch, and then I can drop the wheels in effect and lift the whole bike maybe another inch. give me that couple of inches that I wish I'd given myself in the first place to take account for how it was when it's riding. Now that's the back end done. The front end, what I'm planning on doing, if we do that, is there's a place here called, it's been in business for a long time, called Forking by Frank, and they make fork stanchions for everything. But I've contacted them twice and they haven't replied. And I have spoken to other people who said, oh, they're murdered to deal with. I was hoping to get some new fork stanchions made that were an inch or so longer. But these stanchions are perfect. I don't really want to change them. But anyway, what we'll do is we'll make an extension for the top. So in other words, where this piece here screws into the fork stanchion, we'll make a piece that screws in and is longer. So we'll move this down about an inch. I mean, we're nearly an inch in here. Look, for choppers, people were extending them 3 or 4 inches, so the join was right down here, and they didn't break. So that will be fine. That will give us that. All right. So other than that, spring is officially here. Sun's shining. It's still only about 35 degrees this morning, so it's not that much above freezing. But the snow is starting to go, so it shouldn't be long before I can get out and ride, and that will be a test ride on the new Enfield. So that seems to be everything. I was backwards and forwards about painting this, because my sort of corporate colours, because this has got the white mudguard, so the British Racing Green and white, and then black with white side panels. But I don't think I will. I'm going to polish it up a bit more, and I've got some Triumph decals to go on the sides, like I put Enfield ones on the other alloy tank. Alright, enough blathering. Let me bring you around and show you what we're going to do. I don't know which to do first. I suppose I could do the steering lock last, because if I'm going to take the forks out, I can get at the yokes easier. Anyway, let me show you that. We'll start with the steering lock. Right then, got another lorry. So, I was told by Mick Andrews, who should know, that sort of the perfect position for the steering lock was if you take a straight line, right, down the centre of the bike, so it's going through the centre of the headstock, then at full lock, this should be on that line. Now here it's almost there, but I don't think you can see it very well over there, but this comes through about here. Right, so this needs to come this way to there. So let me move you again. Right, so this knob here and the one round there are the steering stops. Actually, if you watch me build this, you may remember I'd virtually finished the bike and then I suddenly realised I didn't have any stops. Is that muck? Oh, good, yes. So I put this piece on. So that bumps up against that. All right. Now then, when I bring this round to full lock, there's about, well, I can just get my little finger in there. So I can bring this a bit more, and as I say, I don't need to bring it too much. So all I've got to do is grind a little bit off the front of each stop so they'll go a bit further. Now, I could probably get at it with one of those finger sanding things, but it just struck me, if I'm taking the forks out, we'll leave this till last, and then I could actually take the yokes out and we could put it in the mill and mill the front off. The only reason I would like to do it in situ is I can take a bit off and then test it, and then take a bit more off and test it. I don't want to sort of, like take an 1/8 depth off each side, bring it round and have it go smack against the tank. So I might still do it. Hold on a second. I'm back. See, what I'm thinking of is using this. See, I can't get in. Well, I probably can actually get in like that. But this is an alloy yoke, so that'll grind away pretty quickly. If I can do it like this. Oh, yeah. There we are. I was thinking I couldn't, because of the curve here, I couldn't get to the bottom. But if I do it that way, let me just so you can see. If I do it that way, then that's fine. I think I can get in there and do that all right. And then, as I mentioned, I can just keep trying it. So that'll be that. Okay, let's have a look at, what was the other thing? Ground clearance. Alright, so as I said, I think the deciding factor here might be more the carburetor. There's a couple of things I'll have to change. Hang on, let me walk around. Now my plan is this plate, the engine mounting hole, is not equidistant on this one. I think I might just be able to turn this plate over, because this mounting is low on the plate, so if I turn it over it'll be near the top of the plate. If not, I can always make new plates. The oil tank mounting would still be the same, whatever. At the front, hold on. Let me move you across. Right, grip your chairs. Okay. The front, my plan is to just slacken the 3 bolts that are in the engine, take those 2 out, and then with the jack I can lift the engine up, get that back mounting in, and then we'll just lower these 2 holes. You see there's plenty of plate. I can weld those, if everything goes according to plan, I can always weld those holes up so you won't see them, and they'll just be down here. I can even reshape this, so that'll raise it up. The bottom, of course, is just attached to that, so the only piece of sort of work on the frame I'll have to do, excuse me again, is let's have a look. Here, this cross piece on the bottom of the frame, I would have to shorten that. I don't know whether to get into all this with the engine. Anyway, because this head steady would have to come off, and be made to mount up here somewhere. I think this would have to come off to get, I think the carburetor can come up an inch if that isn't there. But then this, if that came up an inch, I probably couldn't get the air filter off. Do you know what? I think this might just be too much work if Chris isn't that worried about it. I've ridden this and, well, it's one of those things where the way I ride this, it doesn't bother me. I come to a biggish log, I go around it on this. Chris would go over it. But he says if the engine's working right, the sort of double blip thing lifts everything up on the suspension, and he can manage. Let's go around the other side. Now the only thing I'd have to do here, of course, is the silencer would come up, is cut a piece off the top. Because you may remember I changed the outlet from up here to down there. Can't even remember why now, but I changed it down here. So just cutting a piece off there and reshaping that would be nothing. Now, when this chain is tensioned, I do have ½ an inch of space there. And I could always put a rubbing plate on there because, of course, again, this is when it's just standing. Normally, this chain would be higher because the suspension would be working. Let me do it. That spring's not a bit stronger on there. But anyway, so I might just do the shit, I've just seen something else. The pivot for this rear brake is here. If I drop the swinging arm, that won't work anymore. I think he's going to have to make do with the ground clearance where it is. That is just too many alterations, I think. Yeah, we're going to do steering lock and we're going to do the camshaft. So this might be a shorter video than I thought. Right then, valve timing. So, as I mentioned, because the engine was out of a T100R, I just looked at the T100R instructions and, you know, it says note that on twin carb models. I didn't even pick it up then. The keyway to be used on the inlet and exhaust cam wheels is directly opposite the timing line. So you can't see them in this diagram very well, but as you can see better on this one. There's 3 positions. There's the timing mark. So, but when I was pulled this back out to look again to see about, you know, I was checking. I went right through the 3TA, the T90, the 5TA, the T100, T100T, T100C. I checked all of the valve timings on them, and as I say, for the T100R and the T100 and the T100, I think for all the 500 models, the valve timing was different, but the amount of valve opening, so let's say on the twin it opened at 10 degrees, these are fictitious numbers, 10 degrees before top dead center and closed 10 degrees after, so it was open for 20 degrees. On the other one it opened at 8 degrees before but closed 12 degrees after. So although the point at which the valve opened and closed was different on the models, the amount of time it was open was the same. So anyway, I got this out, looked it up, and then of course when I turned it over, single carburetor models, single carb models, here you can actually see the 3 keyways. So it says intermediate wheel location, single carburetor models, exhaust camshaft pinion dot aligned with dot on intermediate wheel. So they're different. So I can set it up now for the single carb model, and hopefully that's going to help. Right, so let's get on with that. A slight aside. Here's why I get frustrated. I just ordered some clutch plates. I don't know if I've mentioned this to you, but Barnett, and I have no idea why they do this, really good company. I mean, Barnett clutches are sort of the bee's knees. Their BSA friction plates are listed as being 130 thou thick. You go in the BSA manual to look up the specs and it says 167 thou. That's 37 thou per clutch plate that they're too thin. So 5 plates, there's 5 plates in there. That's the thickness. You know, 535 is what? 150, 175. That's more than the thickness of a friction plate, which is why a lot of people end up putting the extra plate in, and why I do that thing with cleaning one side off a friction plate and putting it in. But anyway, I knew this, so I said I didn't want Barnett ones. I'd try MGO ones, which aren't top quality, but let's see. So I ordered 5 plain plates. God, what's with the lorries today? 5 plain plates and 5 friction plates. I get the order and I open it up, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plain plates, and then we've got 6 plain, 7 plain, 8 plain, 9 plain, 10 plain, 11 plain. I could even half understand it if they'd sent me 10, but anyway, I phoned them up and they were most apologetic and they're sending me the right ones. But you know, This is the sort of thing where you're doing the job and you think, great, my clutch plates have come, I'll finish that job off. And then you've got to wait another 2 or 3 days, 4 days to get the order done. All right, let's go and have a look at this engine. Right, so there's the timing gear. And as you can see, the oil pump, 2-stage oil pump is run off this. It's on an eccentric. Okay, I've turned it round to top dead centre with all the original marks I put on lined up. I can't remember how many times it is. You've got to go around, I don't know, 14 times or something like that, in between them all lining up exactly right. So what I'm going to do, get that out of the way. The reason I've turned it like this is I know I'm at the right top dead centre and everything. So I've got to take this off and this off. Well, I've got to take the oil pump off first. Inlet cam, exhaust cam, they've got to come off, and then we move them round to. There isn't another mark on here, but what we're going to do is we're going to place them in a different position on the camshaft itself and then line them up. But as I say, I know this is a top dead centre now, so there's no problem. Now, these are actually stamped left hand, and I think that one's stamped right hand. And you can't just take these off and pull the cam wheels off. There's a special tool which has these various bits that go with it, and the thing is that not only pulls them off, but you use it to push them back on, because you can't just knock them back onto the camshaft. You screw this on and then you sort of, this one is an ordinary one where you screw it, that's threaded, you screw that on and then screw that in there and it pulls it off. But then what you do is, well, you'll see, is you take this out, put a different piece in, and then when you screw that onto this, you screw that and it pulls the camshaft into that. Okay, so we'll be doing that. Now, I'm going to have to take the rocker boxes off, or at least lift them up, because at the moment, it not being a single cylinder engine, although one cylinder both valves are closed, on the other cylinder they're not. So can't remember which one of these camshafts is going to be under pressure from a valve spring. So we'll do that. And also what I've done is I have bought God, I hope they're in here. If they've forgotten these, I will be. Oh, I was going to say I'll be more than a little miffed. But I bought new rocker box gaskets because they're like a metalized thing, and I've found that when you take the rocker boxes off, these tend to come apart. So rather than again getting halfway through a job and finding I can't finish it, I just ordered new ones. Okay, so let me take this oil pump off and slacken off the rocker box, which means taking the head steady and everything off. Alright, actually I'm going to try a little workaround here, because it suddenly struck me that fortunately I don't have to take the head off, because the one thing this isn't doing is leaking oil from the pushrod tunnels, and that's nice. I've tried about 4 different configurations of pushrod tunnel and those square section O-rings and round section O-rings and everything, because that was a problem with leaking, and they're not leaking, so I don't want to disturb them. But it suddenly struck me, if I loosen off the rocker boxes and these gaskets come apart, the only way I can put the gaskets back on, certainly on this back one, is to take the rocker box right off, which means taking the bolt out, and I can't get these rear bolts out the engine here. I have to drop the engine. It's because of the flats on here for making the head steady mount. Anyway, it could be a load of work. So the left hand cylinder is at top dead center on compression, so both of those valves are closed, no pressure on the springs. The exhaust on this side is only just starting to open. So I can probably take all the pressure off that just with the tappet adjuster, as it's called, the valve clearance adjuster. This one's down a bit. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to slacken off the adjuster here so there's no pressure at all on either of the exhaust valves, then the push rods, then the cam. Get that cam right. Okay. Then I might be able to get the clearance here, I don't know. If not, we'll just turn it that little bit to get that to close and then do the inlet camshaft. And hopefully that'll work. I mean, it's not going to cause any damage or anything, so if it doesn't work, I'll just have to take these off, and I can either keep my fingers crossed that the gasket doesn't break up, or if need be, I have to drop the engine. Alright, so let me take the oil pump off and see what we can do. Okay, taking the oil pump off, and I've just had a thought that although I've got these without any pressure on the camshaft now, when I turn the wheel on the camshaft to the right position on its keyway, I'm then going to have to turn the camshaft to get these to line up. So I might have to loosen off the rocker boxes after all. Now these are stamped up, as I mentioned, look, LH there, LH there. So they're left-hand threads. There's one, and you can't get these the wrong way around because, you know, that's got the thing on it for the oil pump. Oh, I don't remember them being different sizes. That was a 1 inch. This one's a bit bigger. Let me get a right size socket. Right, so as I say, that was 1 inch. This was like 1 1/16. Because 1 1/8 was just loose, but I got it off with a 28mm. So what's the next thing to do, Michael? The next thing to do is, what have I done with the tool? Ah, there it is. So the next thing we do, you see, is we screw that on there like thus. And then we screw this in. I'd actually put a bit of Loctite on these as well. Well, I screwed that out a long way. See, this is long because there's going in here. Wait a minute. Oh, don't tell me this is stripped a thread or something. No, it seems to be screwing on all right. Triumph engines always frustrate me. That doesn't look as if it's screwing in there. Nice it is. I'll have to get something to grip that. Alright. I have to build some flats or something on that to make it easier. You'd wonder why it has to be on so tight when it's keyed on, wouldn't you? Anyway, there are the 3 keyways. And there's our little key. Whoops. So, let me look at the instructions. Alright, you can tell I'm no Triumph expert. I just got very confused there because when I read the instructions, it said to put this on with the mark adjacent to that keyway. And I thought, well, wait a minute, that's the way it is. Well, actually, when I look carefully, and then I look there are two different marks. This is a dash. And up there, look, there is a dot by that keyway. And when I looked at the diagram, that very faint one, you can just see that's a dash and this is a dot. So, what we're going to do is, so these will go on, fine. That is going to go on there. Where's the dot? That's going to come round. There's the dot's there. And I think I've got the key. I'll just make sure, I'll get a torch, make sure I've got the key, and then I'll show you how this other thing works to pull them on. And because we're coming round, so there must be, yep, there's a dot there, look, next to that keyway. So I don't have to worry about the rocker boxes. Hold on a second again. Right, so here's how we go. Now this time we're going to use that thread and the equivalent of this thread. So there's two of these, two different sizes, and this one is really thin walled. And it goes on there, and don't forget this is a left hand thread. So that screws on there. Like that. Then, hang on, let me turn you off because it's going to take me ages to screw this out of here. Alright, then that goes on there. And then that goes on there. And this is a left-hand thread as well. And even though I've just bought, well, I said just bought it a few years ago, but I guess it's a currently made tool, it's still a Whitworth thread. A Whitworth size nut anyway. And then we use that to pull this thing back on. Have I got that keyway right? It looked as if it was on spot on. Have you ever said I don't like working on Triumphs? It looks as if it's on there. Ooh, it's going to be fractionally out. Bugger. Hate these things! Let me pull this back off and put it back on and check that I haven't done any damage. I forgot to tell you, because you notice this one's hollow, that one isn't. That when I use this, there's a little piece that goes on there. Alright, I've taken the idler wheel off so that I could get to see this keyway a little bit better. Alright, so the Woodruff key is in. I've put that on. We want this on the one with the dot. There's the dot. That would seem to be it. Now you tell me, could Triumph have found a more complicated way to put these on? There we go. Oh dear. Okay, that is going to go there. Like that, except that's out. Move this back a little bit. It's all going it. Anyway, let me pull this other one off and put it on right, and then we'll time everything up. So there they are, all back in. That one matched up to there, that one matched to the dot, that one matched to the dot. Now, before I box it up, put the oil pump on and box it up again, I'm sure somebody's going to mention all the camshafts. The inlet camshaft is exactly the same one for the 350s and the 500s, all models. Check this out in the parts book. It lists two different camshafts for the exhaust. There's one for sort of the 350s and the 500 single carb, but there is a different camshaft listed for the T100T and the T100R, basically the Daytona models for you in the UK. So this is a little bit of an experiment. I was planning to play around with the valve timing to try and change the characteristics a little bit, so this will show us what that's going to be. Now you saw this is a bit fiddly, but obviously it's not that difficult. Just one cover to come off the oil pump, and then I could put this back the way it was. So we'll run it. Don't forget, this isn't some sort of really close tolerance head and piston thing. We're not going to do any damage if we run it. Might find that it runs like crap or whatever, but it's worth checking out. I've got a couple of months before the first trial. As I say, the snow's going. We can get it out, we can try it, let's see what's like. If need be, we can change things, we can put them back the way they were, whatever. To change the camshaft, I've got to split the engine. I think, although there is that plate that screws on there, I'm not sure if the camshaft will come out without splitting the engine. If it will, I might try and get the single carb engine, you know, T100C, straight T100 type thing, exhaust camshaft. So we'll see about that. I'll maybe watch a video or two, because I can't remember, to be honest, as I've worked on so few times, and I don't have another one to check up on. But anyway, I know somebody will ask about that, so this is the same camshaft for all the models. This is a different one, you know, maybe a slightly higher lift, something like that, for the sportier twin carb ones. So let's see. And don't forget, you know, if you sort of read up about works rides like AGS ones, I think they used to use the 7R road race camshaft inlet or exhaust, I can't remember which, in the trials bike. You know, they used to play around to get the characteristics they want. So this will change the way the engine runs, might be for the better, might be for the worse. So let me put the oil pump on, box this up, and then we'll see about doing this steering lock. Alright, everything's back together. Polish the tank up a bit. I was going to put those Triumph emblems on that, but they were slightly strange. I don't know if they were supposed to be water slide, but the one I tried to put on was weird, so I'll have to get some more. Okay, I'll put some petrol in. Right, let's see if I've screwed it up. First kick isn't bad, is it? So all I need is for the last of the snow to disappear. Get out and try it. Alright, let's have a go at this grinding a little bit off these steering locks. Not steering locks, steering stops. So as I say, we're going to get in and take the front off this. They look as if they're painted, don't they? I don't remember whether they're painted or whether they're just the bead blast finish. Now, what I've found with things like this that you're grinding, sometimes it's difficult to know how much you've ground off. So what I always do is I mark them. Even if I only mark it sort of the thickness of that, you know, like that. Can you see that? It's awkward, isn't it? Anyway, all there is the black line, and then I know when I get to the black line I've got, because what can happen is you grind away and then you stop and you look and you think, well, I can't really tell how much I've ground off. But if you put a line on, you can see. So let me get the thing out and put my ear protectors in. So, safety glasses on, earplugs in. I'll do this from the other side. Good, that's working. See how that is? That was blowing right in my ear, that. I've got to move around. Oh, I'm going that way, aren't I? Oh dear, 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 dear. No, not quite yet. So let me keep going with this. Of course, you notice I'm catching there, so I'll have to be careful about that. Right, well, I'd have to lift the camera up and hand hold it to get you up in the air. But that's as much as I dare take off. I take it close to the tank, and the centre of that is here. So I think we're about as close as you can get. Like with the ground clearance, that's the best we can do. I should have just built it better in the first place. Anyway, snow's melting. In fact, it's melting. It was 60 yesterday. It's nearly the same today. I think it might be gone by Saturday, in which case we'll take this out. We know it starts and there's a tick over and everything, so we'll take it out and see what it's like just in this little bit next to the workshop. So that's it for now. I'll see you on Saturday. Alright, well, it's Thursday, but it struck me I promised to weigh the bike, so I thought we'd do that. It's actually about 50 degrees and it's just eased off. It's raining, so that should really get rid of the remaining snow. Right, so here is my super pooper new weighing scale. Let's see, where to switch it on? On, off. And it's tared out for the weight of this. So we're going to start with Jensen's bike, because this, of course, is exactly like the way I build the oh, that's going to catch on that. What was I saying? Exactly the same as the way I build the bikes when I modified the oiling frame one. So let me pick this up. Till the wheels are off the ground. There's the front wheel up. And there's the back wheel. Now that obviously is not right. Oh, that says ounces. Hang on. Mode. Pounds. 211, nearly 212 pound. That actually is a bit more than I thought it was. It's got oil and petrol in it, so I dare say the bare bike is about 200 pound. Alright, well, we'll say 211 and a half. Alright. Okay, so I'll go and write that down, and then I will get the next bike. Right, the next one is the standard Enfield. There we go. Wow. 272 and 273. 273. Wow. Doesn't feel that when you're riding it. Okay. Right, this is the BM Enfield, shall we say. Make sure this is far enough forward for this to lift the front wheel. 273 pound. There's the front wheel up. Wow. Now I've got to move this backwards, the back wheel's still down. Right, that's the front wheel up. Come on, back wheel. There's the back wheel up. 237. Wow, we knocked 30 odd pound off that. Oh, let's settle. Wheels still off the ground. We'll say 237. Okay. That's not bad. Right, the last one is the Triumph Otter. This reasonably centered. Now this one's got some petrol in it as well. There's the back wheel up, and there's the front wheel up. 242 and a half. Okay. Okay. 242.5. Alright, well, here's what we got. And for those of you living in sort of more modern and enlightened countries, such as our friends in the Antipodes and anybody in the UK who is considerably younger than me, I've put it in kilos for those of you who are metric. Alright, so the B25, 211.5, and it's got petrol and oil and everything like that in it, so it's probably, I don't know, £205, something like that, which I think is exactly what they list for a Yamaha TY250, and I always reckoned it was around £200, so that's about what I thought. Look at that, £273. Now when you consider that's with basically Tiger Cub hubs in it, I know in Don Morley's book he said when you bought an Enfield Works replica, which was what, you know, the bike they sold, they had the big full width alloy hubs, and the rear one was a big hub, and he said it weighed £54, the rear wheel, so it's got to be £30 less for the rear wheel, and I don't know, maybe £20 less for the front, so £50 on top of that. It's going to be £320 when you went out and bought your standard Enfield. No wonder my friend Howard had so much trouble with his, because he's only about 5'6", something like that. So there you go. Doesn't feel like that when you're riding it. I think because the weight is so low down, you just you could almost describe it as nimble when you're riding it. What it goes around is unbelievable. Anyway, so we managed to shave off what, £36 with the BM one, so that's not too shabby. So £36 lighter, better brakes, shorter wheelbase, slightly tighter fork angle. There you go, Bob, that is going to be fun to ride. And the Otter, 242.5. Now it's only £30 more than that, because this has got some petrol in it as well, and oil. But according to the workshop manual, the 500 engine weighs 105 pounds. That's with the cast iron barrel, and we put the alloy barrels on, which I seem to remember saved us £7, so that should be £98. This engine is listed as 80, so that's £18 more, and we're what? We're £30 there.
But the 650 engine in the book is listed as 135. In other words, £30 more. And, you know, there's very little difference in the size of the engine, to be honest. The barrels are probably a similar weight. Flywheels can't be much. But anyway, that's what they came out at. So there you go. I'll have to write this down somewhere so I can keep it for future reference. And, Alright, let me get the vacuum out. I've really got to do some tidying in the workshop. Getting ready for me to reveal our next project. So anyway, as I say, it's warm, it's raining, so, and it's Thursday. Might well have a quick run out on Saturday, just on the little bit next to the workshop on the new Enfield. Well, it's wet and cold, miserable. It's Saturday, so I'm not going to take the bike out. I thought I'd make the bash plate for my Enfield, as if it needs more weight. So this is just something I wanted to get done. I didn't put a bash plate on it before, same as I didn't put a chain tensioner on, because I just made it sort of exactly as a works replica would be, and I really wasn't planning to use it in trials. Even running around on my own land, I could choose, you know, what I was going to do. But I thought, if I'm going to ride it in a trial, then, you know, if there's a step or a log or something in a section, I don't want to ride it without a bash plate. So, taking the opportunity to make one of those. So, next week I will show you what the next project is going to be. Got an itchy ear. So, until then, you stay safe and enjoy yourselves.